This is a video about how to process loofah gourds that were picked when they're still green. So the tools you need for the first step are a bit of sidewalk or some other kind of really hard surface, and then something that you can use to really hit the loofah gourd hard. So I use the flat side of this hori-hori. I think a hammer would work just fine. So you start by grabbing it by the stem end, the skinny end, and then smacking it really hard against the sidewalk over and over again until this tough rind really starts to break up into a lot of smaller pieces. Now I'm going to step back over here because, as you'll see, this is really super messy. And I don't want this to hit my phone. You'll see the rind is breaking up, the blossom end is breaking off. And you don't need to worry about damaging sponge. Just hit it. All right, it's getting pretty well broken up here. And then you take your blunt implement here and just start hitting that thin end. And you can see this is pretty well split all the way through. And it's not too difficult at this point to just kind of peel it back and pull out this fibrous sponge. This gourd was picked about 2.5 weeks ago, and I think if you let them sit for even just a few days, something in them starts to break down, and it makes it a lot easier to peel the skin off. So almost done here. Just a couple bits that are a little harder. All right, there's my sponge. Now the next steps involve rinsing as much of the sap out of this as you can, because the sap is going to make it rot if you try to dry it with lots of sap in, and getting as many seeds out as you can, because the seeds also can rot and they also block the airflow. So what I'm going to do is set this vertical, as vertical as I can get, and spray it down with some high pressure water from the hose, and then I'm gonna stick it into this bucket of soapy water to soak for at least a day, and that'll really get most of the sap out. There we go. Lean it. All right, as I'm shaking it, some seeds are coming out, and you can kind of squeeze some of the sap out too. It bubbles up like soap when it comes out. All right, into the soap this new one goes. Now this one here has been soaking for actually a few days, so it's full of soapy water. I'm going to give it the same treatment. Spray it down to try to get all the soap and any leftover sap out. A bunch more seeds are going to come out as I do this. So I can shake it and get a lot more seeds out. You can kind of look through the core and see how many seeds you've got left. Next, get as many seeds out as I can. I'm gonna do this by whacking this really hard against the post on my kids' sandbox here. You will see the seeds go flying. Hopefully they don't get all over my phone. Sometimes you gotta just whack it against like all sides and angles so that you break the seeds off that are kind of stuck to the fiber on the inside. And you don't really need to worry about damaging the sponge. Like, you might break a few fibers, but you're really not gonna hurt it by doing this. You can also kind of see seeds by trying to look like through the sponge itself. So I can see I've just got a few more in here that are kind of stuck. It's nice and flexible because it's not dry yet, which will keep it from breaking. I have broken a few, but out of like the dozens of these I've done, but I'm not worried about it because I'm going to be cutting these up anyways. All right, I got 95% of the seeds out, and the rest of them might come out a little bit easier once it's dry. The next step is drying these, and I like to leave them to dry for a day or two up here. This is the roof of my kids' sandbox. Here's one that's been out here since yesterday, and it's almost dry, and I want to bring it inside and put it in the oven on the lowest setting for a few hours to try to like really get it completely dry. There you see my gourd in my oven at about 130 degrees. I'm gonna check it in about an hour and see how it's doing. And when they're done, they're all nice and dry, completely dry. Some of them that I left in that needed a few hours in the oven got a little bit toasty. I'm not bothered by that. But perhaps if I had let them be a little more thoroughly dry before putting them in, that might not have happened. And here is this beautiful collection of loofah sponges.